All right. Hopefully, this is working as intended. I don't have any way of being able to tell because my devices are all arguing with me or with each other. They're kind of cutting me out of the conversation. But this is why I'm not on video right now. For those of you who happen to already jump in, I am trying to figure some things out on here. I don't really understand how to change, well, several things. I'm not sure how to change my stream information so that when I stream different things, it shows up as different things. Yeah, stream is, or Twitch is odd for me. I don't know where anything is. Okay. Okay, I think I found it. All right, here we go. Sweet. All right, as usual, we're going to do some map making tonight. I may have a friend joining me. We can get it worked out. Yeah, but I think you're only going to be able to hear our voice tonight. For some reason, everything is not working exactly the way it should. That's okay. Live and learn. Live and learn. All right, now, how the heck do I share this with anybody? twitchtv.dmfainor, I guess. Not sure. Bum, 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 bum. Huh. Well, hello there. Can you hear me? Oh, where are you? Actually, my buddy Brian, I thought was coming. Hello, Brian. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely can. Fantastic.
Awesome.
Check OBS and see if we're both coming through that. Can you say something else for me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, fantastic. Let me turn that volume down. I can't hear it, but I'm sure it's redlining, at least on Twitch. Yeah. So I've currently gone live. I just figured out how to actually edit the information on my stream. Twitch is it's their approach is very new to me, and I'm not sure how to approach it. I think is the better way to say it. So I'm still feel very lost when it comes to Twitch. But currently, I'm live. I have no idea. I think somebody's in the audience. Maybe it's just you.
Yeah, it was. I was checking it out.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, I believe you should be on voice with me, so you might have to mute the stream on Twitch.
Yeah, I heard myself come through.
Okay, is that cool with you? Does that bother you?
No, not at all.
Okay.
It's fine with me.
Awesome. I'm also doing a background recording so I can put this on YouTube later. So yeah, man, I've been going nuts on Inkarnate. The past couple of weeks, I've just been really, really, really inspired. Let's see if I guess you can already see my screen. So spoilers for some of. All right. Yeah, I think I'm just going to create a new one. This will be safe, unless one of players from another game are watching. But if I don't say the right words, they may not pick it up. So we'll see. We shall see. So one of my things that I've been trying to figure out is how big you can make a map on Inkarnate. Because once I get over a certain size, if I want to make like a big castle and have lots of little rooms, once I start shrinking, like make a big area and shrink the assets down, they'll get really blurry. There's like a sweet spot size. Like they'll stay good. Like if you blow it up, I think to like 65, then you can shrink the assets down to a decent degree. But it's just really, it's challenging to make big, very detailed maps. Particularly if you're looking for, 5-foot square details. So it's easier, I think, to kind of plan it out and break your map up into several sections, which I've been kind of trying to do that. Or most recently, I did a big area map, which is about a quarter mile, maybe, area. And it'll be more like a something between a hex and a point map, where they'll be able to look at the map and see dangers and difficulties. They'll be able to determine what information they have about those areas and be able to sort of navigate their way through on a larger screen, like a tactical war game kind of map thing, right? Where they're moving around, and there'll still be some encounters and stuff when I do that, but the encounters will be theater of the mind and really short, brief as they're sort of traveling in. If anything big happens, I have smaller like battle maps for the area, and then as they get closer to the central area, I've got sort of zoomed in versions of the same thing. So I started with like a really big area, and made some hills and a bunch of trees and terrain, and then had this sort of central thing which you can zoom in and get visual details, but it wasn't detailed enough for 5-foot square and tokens to move around on. So I then it's pretty easy to do. Once I had everything filled in, I had this big area, then I could just sort of highlight, delete all the assets around the certain square, and then grab all the assets and blow them up. And then I just had to repaint the background layer to get the roads and paths and texture of the land and grass and stuff right again. And then I was even able to go back in and do a third map where I took the roof off of the area. So there's like a big area map to zoom around on. Once they get into the area, there's an outdoor map to explore. And then I made an alternate map where I was able to take the roofs off and show the inside a little bit. So that's sort of been my tactic for how to keep a cohesive, if you have the same sort of colors and tones on your maps, it'll feel like the same area, I think, a lot easier. And it'll do some of your work for you, because it's a picture's worth 1,000 words, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then you can keep those details without distorting it too much, just by blowing it up instead of having to make a whole new map and rethink everything or whatever. So that's been a pretty useful thing. But the other thing that I figured out, let me see if I can find this one map. So I figured out that you can go into textures. And then when you select the catalog, whether you click on the picture or the button below, once you click that, up top, there's an upload button. Which means, my friend, that we can hand draw maps on graph paper if we like, or take a picture if we're not, from one of the game books or modules that we have.
Yeah.
Then we can upload it as a background. Let me show you what I mean. I'll just, let's see here. Well, I've got one I'm going to do that's better. So hang tight with me for just a second, and I will snap a quick pic of this, and everybody can see real time how kind of quick this is. So I've not yet found the map in question yet. I'm digging through my stack of projects ahead of me. And curses, where are you? Curses. There's the busy rattling of paper, yes. Bother. Alright, one more thing. I really thought I had this in my stack. I may have moved it to another folder, but... Okay, well this is taking too long. So, try something else instead. Okay, so I'm just going to upload, and hopefully, I think I have one of the others that I uploaded previously this week. Looking, stalling. Okay, let me actually do something else really quick first. Okay, a little bit of music. Now, that's just so tricky. Anyway, so you can hand draw something, take one out of one of your modules, snap a picture of snap a picture of something, and then just email it to yourself, open it on your computer, and you'll be able to then search it up really quick. So I found a map I'm going to use. I'm about to take a picture. I will then send it to myself in email. Pretty quick anyway. And it's a great workaround for having to keep furiously glancing up from your paper to the map you're working on. Trying to get the details right, the dimensions, and leave enough room for the secret doors and XYZ. So
You can just trace over it.
absolutely. And there's kind of a method to it. So once you get it on there, you want to place like your assets first, like your walls and stuff like that, because once you paint the background, it's going to paint over the map that you've sent. So you want to get all your pieces in place first before you erase that. Okay. Sending might take a moment to actually send it to myself. We'll see. But I'm kind of confused though as to where this other map went now. One incoming. So you said you got a subscription to. I'm sorry, to Inkarnate as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. And you mess with it much?
Just a little bit, just to build the two maps that I had, the world map and the city map.
Nice. Okay. Actually, my desktop. Alright. Here's this thumbnail. Now once we get it in there, we'll want to bring the scale up pretty much as high as possible. Don't worry, we can readjust it if it's too big. Keep that opacity all the way up and save the texture. Then when you, it'll take a minute to add it, of course. And just continue. We'll see if it's gonna set right. Sometimes you might have to send it to yourself more than once. Let's see. Okay, so we'll just use this opening up advanced settings at the bottom down here. You can change the size of anything, our textures and stuff like that. Unfortunately, that's not going to be quite big enough, but that's alright. We can definitely just put it toward the center and shrink it back down. Changing our offset so we can get it centered where we want it. And then it kind of doesn't matter because once we get it, all the walls and everything added up, we'll be able to grab the whole thing and size the whole thing up. So that's fine. So here we've got our little background, and then we can then zoom in and look at our details. Granted, it gets a little rough, but we still have our regular copy for the actual labeling. So yeah. Then we can go in and add some walls and different stuff. Search up walls. Let's say this is a cave, suppose do something rough. We don't even always have to use walls. We can use just bits of rock and build our own rubble walls out of stuff. But some of this looks pretty orderly, so start down here. Go ahead and resize these pieces. Again, see how they get kind of messy when they're small?
Yeah.
But again, we're going to size all this back up. It just depends on how you want to play stuff, so. Yeah, once we get it all built, we'll size it back up. Anyway, this is the most tedious part, is just getting all your walls and everything set in. If you're doing an open area map like this, it's much easier to drop in like little cliffs and shading to make terrain. But with this way of doing it, or with, you know, using actual wall pieces, it's probably one of the more tedious things you can do in Inkarnate. But the effects they speak for themselves. So yeah, very quickly, I'm not going to do this whole thing, because this map is not the one I was looking for. To share a little bit of these tricks. It's broke down. Oh, over here on the asset catalog, if you click for random shapes, it'll give you a
just
different
do it
one.
randomly.
Yeah, it'll do it. So
yeah.
It kind of helps you fast track
That's
the
what
process.
That's what I was using when I was building a forest. That way, it was just a bunch of different trees.
Oh, that's super great. That's what I was
really
gonna
nice.
totally, because you can just kind of paint with the brushes, bushes, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's awesome. It's super. It's kind of Bob Ross a little bit. It's really fun and kind of relaxing.
Right.
I don't find building the walls relaxing, but I do find it satisfying once it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like doing nature areas just for that reason. Is like you can kind of just draw your, you know, kind of concentric shapes for, elevation and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like cliff shapes you can add in on those circles, just super easy to make that terrain change. And then goodness, yeah, and then you can just sort of painting a nature scene from above, thinking about where how different types of plants might grow, and these things cluster together, these cluster under shade, these grow at the bottom of trees or cliffs, and just sort of like thinking through the environment is nice. I find it relaxing. That's part of why I've been really into it. But also, I'm at a key point with a bunch of campaigns where I need a bunch of maps. There's always a scramble. It's kind of why I like being a dungeon master. Lots of opportunities to exercise my creative problem-solving skills. anyway, once you sort of get all your walls and stuff in place, you can move on to doing some other stuff if you have. Often if there's like just little details that you're not going to remember, you'll want to put them on this part too. Like say if you've got a wall that's broken in, you've got a secret door, you want to go ahead and indicate that. Sometimes I'll just take rubble. Let's see. Cool, we got some different ones. We can change its color to make sure that it matches the other stuff. So for that, we'll go down again in advanced settings, go to the filters, and we can change the hue of our rocks. Let's change the size first so we can see it. Okay, there's our rocks. I could change the hue, which that's pretty cool. I could change the saturation, really blue or sort of grayed out blue, or drop it entirely, which is what I'm going to do here. Drop the brightness down, make it match this stuff. Then, of course, drop the size back down. And from here, you can do cool stuff like, okay, well, sure, this is it looks like a solid wall, but then once your party, if they explore this area or you give them some reason to, goodness, too big. Then you'll be able to do something like, oh wow, why is it so huge? It's so big.
It just keeps getting bigger.
I know, what is that? Okay, now, so that must have been the smallest piece of rubble that I shrunk down. So let's take the biggest piece of rubble. And then you can just hold the button down and it'll sort of paint it in place. And I'll often do stuff like this as a placeholder for where my secret doors are. Once I raise it to a larger size, I'll do some more elaborate stuff, but just lets me know that there's a little path there, you know. Maybe I'll do another one over here. And then I've got, you can see these dotted lines. These are hidden caves. And so something I'll do to indicate those is I'll do something really similar, but I'll change the color of it. And so let's bring that saturation back up a little bit, leave the brightness the same. And then I'll come in and I'll leave a space just for a gap, and I'll just outline what I think that secret tunnel would be. Now, obviously, in this situation looks pretty rough, like a rat's tunnel or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I'll first just do a once over and do a line for one side and just get the absolute outline. And then I'll go in and just click, 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 and fill it in, and make a nice solid wall out of rubble. Which it looks pretty good once I blow it up. You'll see the effect is actually pretty decent. And since everything you put in, if it's on the same level, it'll go in on top of whatever else. You want to do stuff like to layer it really cool. You'll be like, okay, here's the edge that closest to the players. So I'll come in like this to this edge, and then make sure you paint everything else in on top of it leading up. So it kind of looks like this is stacked on top of this, on top of this, on top of this. Blow that up really quick so you can see what I mean. Then you can go back over. Once again, you can change your level on the next thing. Come on now. Just bump the level up by 1. Those are your little stacked up sheets there. And then do the same thing again, basically. And you'll get like a little layering effect. The ones underneath will have the shadow of the ones on top on them. Because that's one thing about the layer effect is the shadow function, which so you kind of see it gives it a nice 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional look, a little bit anyway.
Yeah.
Now another thing you could do is manipulate your shadows. So you can, usually they're set to be on the object underneath them, but you can also make them on the layer. That's usually for stuff if you want like darkness to emanate out of the walls. I'll make one of the rocks or several of the rocks emanate, be like cast shadows onto the layer. So that way the background that you paint on is where the shadow is going instead of the other assets, right? But if I want things really clear and I want to sort of paint my own shadows or it to be a really bright place, then I'll put no shadows, of course. And it'll just sort of change. It changes pretty dramatically. So playing with grabbing all the objects in an area and turning all the shadows off, it'll give you a stark difference, you know. So, okay, going back a little bit, because I don't need this big pile of rocks here. Nah, that's okay. I'll do it this way. Oh, it's still counting. That's what happens when you're streaming, recording, running a few programs in the background, and
Talking on Discord.
yeah, and yeah, got Twitch. I'm looking at Twitch in the background. Just at least minimize that. Give my computer a break. Well, it's taking its time. Okay, here we go. Shrink that back down and delete. Hopefully. There we go. Okay. Now similarly, we can, like I said, we can take those same sort of pale rocks and we can make most of our walls out of that rock if we want. And if you're just trying to get outlines, that could be a great way to just outline the map really quickly so you can get it back to a good resolution that looks good and start adding details. So in such cases, I might just do like I did earlier and be like, just outline everything. And that's good enough. It gives me a bare sort of outline of how this stuff might work, or the outlines of everything, so that when I blow it up, I can add my walls and whatever I'm going to do to add my walls. It doesn't necessarily have to be exact, because you can clean up your angles, especially with those wall pieces, which are, a lot of them are pretty straight, so you don't have to worry about all that stuff too much. Have you ever seen an excavated, like, medieval or keep? There's not a lot of perfect right angles in there until later periods.
Yeah, I mean the Colosseum in Rome comes to mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they just overbuilt, you know, so it didn't have
that
to.
labyrinth that is exposed now, as opposed to the Colosseum floor.
Totally. And so at this point, say, you know, I mean, obviously there's more, but I'm not going to finish this one. I was looking for one I'm actually going to use for a game. This one has already been used. So from here, we can just go ahead and start painting a little bit of our background. And I like to actually... masks are interesting too, so I'll play with those here in a minute, but let's find a good rock pattern, like broken tiles or something like that. Dark dungeon floor, it looks pretty good. Bring our size down. And then you can also, in the advanced settings, you can change, like I said, the size of those patterns to reflect the size of the constructions or the size of your map, you know?
Yeah.
So just for the moment, we'll probably have to redo this here in a minute once we size everything up, but let's go ahead and do that. And of course, if you have a really cool geometric pattern, there's some really neat, like elven and fey floor tiles. You can also do the rotation and your offset to get it centered if you want. Like if there's a starburst and you want it in the center of the ballroom, you can do that with your offset X and Y and your rotation to get it all set up the way you want it. And now we're starting to get an idea. It's like, okay, this is what the map is starting to clear up, but the real point here is to get your shapes roughed out and see if there's anything if what you're using, your assets and your textures work together. So it's not great, but I like it. Now we are going to highlight the whole thing. Zoom way out. Boy, I only did a tiny piece of that. Definitely gives you, those watching, an idea of how long it might take to make a really detailed map. Well, there's a lot going on my computer right now. Poor buddy. We'll get you a friend soon. Alright. And now, since I still have my hand-drawn map, or whatever I use this from, my module, I don't necessarily have to worry about the details written here. So we will now sort of go back in, paint a... Yeah, let's just do this whole background, like so. Boy, Inkarnate. And the computer's just like, come on, I'm trying so hard. And then, of course, we got these tools above the size and brush where we can just kind of just do whole chunks of area, and that's pretty nice. And bam. Got that done. Cross corridors. Bam.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, without some of these tools, man, to make your own maps would just be...
A
It'd be a
long
lot,
process.
man. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It would be a labor of
Now,
love. It used to be for everybody.
does Roll20 have its own map making features?
Well, Roll20 has a... I think I would call it more a map-making canvas. You can bring...
In images from the web.
Totally. So it allows you... You got 3 layers on Roll20. You've got the map layer. You can't, players can't move any of it. They can't interact with it at all. You
But
can.
they can see it.
Right, they can see it. You have the token layer, which you can click on a move. If players have access, they can move those. And then you've got the GM layer, which the players can't see, but you can. That's where I put my notes and traps and all that stuff. So you can definitely make a map, find a map somewhere, and upload it, put it on the map layer in Roll20. And then they have access to all sorts of free assets like chairs and creatures and whatever else. So early on in the campaign, before I got this, most all of the maps that we played on in Landfall were made just using free Roll20 assets. Including like the Pillar Hill, inside the Halls of Silence. All those different areas were all cobbled together. And I bought some third-party add-ons like art packets and stuff on Roll20 that are pretty cool, have neat effects, and use those creatively. Like, oh, it's a spell effect, but if you widen it and narrow it here, it looks like a giant area of diffuse light that's unlike any other color that they offer. So you can mix and match, and a little bit of creative application, or thinking around the corner.
I used what was it? Just like a wall of fire spell effect to just make it look like a barricade was on fire.
Nice.
I was like, oh, this is a long, thin strip of fire. It's perfect. I'm gonna put it on top of the barricade.
Yeah, dude. And that type of thinking, I think, is really good for our brains. It's one of my favorite things about tabletop role-playing game, especially as a GM. There's so many ways to creatively problem solve and be inspired and use different parts of your brain, basically, that don't often get brought up, at least in the same combination anyway. So. Well, heck yeah. So you made some maps on Inkarnate, but so far, have you...
Most of my map making has been finding like battle maps through Google and Reddit and just sizing them on Roll20, which is kind of a challenge in and of itself.
It totally is.
But I've built 2 with the what's that feature called where the your players can pop in and it's as they move the darkness changes.
Oh, okay, yeah. Dynamic lighting.
Dynamic lighting. Thank you.
Man, yeah. It's really fun. I want to use it some more. It was definitely taxing on a couple of our players' computers, but I wonder if that's something that we could try again because it could be really fun.
Yeah, I was definitely like interested, and actually the next session we play, we'll be playing on the first map with dynamic lighting. So I have yet to experience it like functioning in a game. I just know how to put it together, which is actually, it wasn't as tedious as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, especially with the
Um,
polygon tool, I think.
yeah, the polygon tool really helped. Just being able to draw lines and distinguish different areas. Plus, it's kind of cool where you can put doors, and now you can Roll20 just added you can put windows in there, so players can see through them, but they can't move through them. But I
Yeah.
think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, it is pretty nice. It's a great feature. Interactability is, yeah, pretty sweet. They keep
Yeah.
adding more little bits of it. It's nice.
So, but yeah, next session we're gonna be going through a sewer, uh, and fighting some different guards. I was really obsessed with using the figurines and stuff that Roll20 has, like the top down, like you can see the top of someone's head, and they have
Yeah.
city guards and all of that, and I've really liked using those, but
Mm-hmm.
I've come to enjoy the simplicity of tokens.
Yeah.
So if it's not if it's not just an innocuous NPC, someone who's not participating in combat or the campaign in any way, I will use one of those figurines. But now I just kind of use I just use tokens. I'll just find a picture, make a token, and do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same way for my like red shirts and faceless NPCs. I like the top down because they're immersive. It's cool. It looks like a person walking around on a top down map. But if it's a
Yeah.
person I want you to see what they look like, well, I'm definitely using a token for sure.
Yep. Or even so I've come to the point where even like if it's just a bunch of guards, I'll use tokens for guards as well.
Okay.
Um just because it's easier for me to move, because in my mind when I'm using them in combat, I will find that I'm constantly wanting to turn them and like have them facing the correct direction. And just as a new DM, I'm finding it very distracting. So I'm like, because it's just one more thing to focus on.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah. So I'm definitely like having interesting moments prepping for this campaign, and like making notes. But I've got so what I've done is basically planned out like the map. I've got the map, and I know all the major locations, and I know the plot and pacing points I want to hit in those locations.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm as each session approaches, I'm not making plans as to what's going to happen.
Mm.
I'm trying to predict what my players are doing and prep for that, and so far that's worked out pretty well. But I've kind of just been rolling with it and seeing how they choose. I know how to win the game, and I want to see if they can figure out a better way to do it.
Totally. That's a great approach for being a GM, for sure. Give them problems and figure out how they're going to solve it. you know,
Yeah,
don't. Yeah.
exactly.
Um,
So, or
heck
it's
yeah.
it's kind of like and and well, in this I give a lot of leeway. Like, I mean, it's not they're not D&D players. This is their first experience with D&D overall.
Oh, gotcha.
Um
Okay.
and so like, I'll limit them, and like, I'll make sure that they are paying attention to their spell slots, and like, okay, hey, you've cast two third level spells now. You're casting a third one. You're only a level 3 character, or like a level 4 character. Like, you want to think about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah, I forgot to track my spell slots. And like, yeah, I thought that might be happening. So, um, but
Nice.
uh, I'll give a lot of leeway with stuff, and just kind of be silly with it. I mean, that's for me, that's the goal. Like, I just want to be for them in particular. Like, if I was GMing a group of players that were super familiar with D&D and knew what they were doing, it would be different.
Mm-hmm.
But just just me and my friends, it's more about us making each other laugh and like,
Yeah.
I've got a story planned out, and I know who the villain is. I know what they need to do. Um, I've got like in each of the cities that are in my world, I've got different factions that can be recruited to help them take down the evil overlord, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just planning out characters for those and leaders of those factions and what they offer, bring to the table. Um, and I've tried to give the different factions in each city, like not all of them, but a couple of them opposing like views and viewpoints. So
Mm.
essentially, like if you recruit this one faction from this city, you're not going to be able to get these people. Um,
Yeah.
the best example, I think, are the. Okay, let me flip through my notes because it's the two major dwarven cities, and it was. Ba, 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 ba. Uh, oh no, no. Places. I've got it all handwritten in a notebook because I'm like, I started typing it out, but I just couldn't. Okay, there it is. So I've got a group of uh one city is a group of dwarven artificers, and the other city on the other side of the world is a group of dwarven forge clerics. And the two groups split over differences. So whichever one the party recruits to their side, the other one is actually going to be helping the the evil uh, overlord.
Wait, say that again.
So
I was reading this
in the
just.
two dwarven cities that I've got,
Mm-hmm.
one group is a group of dwarven artificers, and the other group is dwarven forge clerics. And they
Mm-hmm.
they will not work together. They don't like each other. They split. They went to um, and so if you recruit one, the other will not work with you, and it will actually end up working against you at the by the end of the campaign as part of like the evil overlord's army.
I love it. I love it. I would say, yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So I'm interested to see if they can convince me as those two groups to work together. I'm definitely open to the possibility of like making peace,
Mm-hmm.
but it's going to require like a CR30 check or something. I mean, it's going to have to be insane.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, you could also throw some little, other NPCs that know some things that they might chance upon a meet if they're like super either good players or just rewarding them for exploring in the sort of way you want them to explore it. Then you might give
Yeah.
them an NPC that would help them and maybe drop that down or give them a chance to meet another character and depending on how those diplomacy checks go, maybe drop that DC or something like that. Because if the players, you might find that players really want to lean into that, or even being double agents. So,
Ooh,
yeah, not every,
I like that.
not every group, but some you get, especially a bunch of people that have played rogues, and they were like, well, let's see what kind of
Yeah.
deal we can cut here.
For sure. I know that like in our last session, we were exploring the Feywild, and like it was an innocuous detail, right? And I was just like, oh well, you see some pixies, off in the distance, and it was just a detail as they were traveling through.
Right.
And one of them immediately was like, I want to talk to the pixies. And I went, I have not prepared for this. I'm
Shit.
all right. We're going for it. We're making it
Yeah.
up on the fly. Here we go. And
Oh yeah.
they ended up giving the pixies like like a some elixir or something. And traditionally, like, you want to give fairy dragons like candy and sweets and stuff. And I was like, well, maybe pixies like booze. I don't in this world. Maybe
Oh
they like
yeah.
booze. So they got some booze, and the pixies were like, they were just essentially like, all right, yeah, we'll do you some favors, no problem. Like, just throwing it.
I love the
I
voice.
just made it up on the fly.
Yeah. That's the stuff, man. Right on. Good job. How'd they react to it?
Uh, they loved it, man. They absolutely loved it. They ate that shit up. So,
How'd you like it?
oh, it was so much fun. Are you kidding me? It was the best.
That's what man. DM surprises are my favorite. Whether I'm surprising them, but generally when we're both surprised, that's the best. Kudos, man. Right on. That's my favorite thing about being a dungeon master, for sure. My players surprise me, and then I surprise myself, and then surprise them, That's awesome. And that voice was fantastic, dude. I would have loved that
Yeah,
as a player.
I just made it up. I was just like, I'm gonna go. What would a pixie sound like? I guess Stitch from Lilo and Stitch. That's what they sound like now.
That's your world,
So,
man. That's what they sound like
well,
now.
now I have to remember that for next time because I'm like I can't do a different voice now. So
No. They might have slight variations on a theme, different pixies, right?
yeah.
But
And
yeah.
I've been playing around with like the voice acting and stuff and just having fun with it, and I'm really waiting. I'm only like a few sessions away from a huge payoff that I've been waiting on. And it's
Oh
that,
yeah.
they have initially, like, to get them engaged in the campaign, they accepted a job from this duke from one of the cities, and he kind of talked like this, and he was a big fop, and he was just a big silly guy. And
Damn it.
then, like, essentially they they failed his job because the people he sent them to kill turned out to be the good guys, and they were like, yeah, that guy actually works for the bad guy. And so I'm waiting on them to confront the duke about it, so that I'm gonna literally swap his token out with a different picture, because it's right now it's like some, those old English wigs, like the big white wigs that, like, you see like
Oh
for English
yeah.
Parliament and stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's that with a white powdered face and blush, and he just looks stupid. But he's actually a rogue, and he's using illusory magic
Oh,
to hide his
nice
features.
misdirection. I love it.
So I'm gonna swap the tokens out, and his voice is gonna change from this to just something real deep down low, and just like, you are absolutely out of your depth right now.
I
And
love it.
I want them to fight him because I'm open to them winning the fight, but
Hmm.
they're not gonna win the fight. Does that make sense? They're gonna have to run away. I want to try and teach them that it's okay to be like, we need to leave. We
Totally.
can't. So it might take somebody going down or two people going down. Um, and then at that point, I might, like, you know, air quotes, forget about a legendary resistance or something and allow them to escape. But
Totally. Totally. I will
but
say
yeah,
to
I'm just
that, if they manage to start cutting into him, let them.
oh yeah. Yeah,
And
I'm
because it can always
100%
be
open to them winning that fight.
totally because it can always be a double, a clone, an image. He might have had a contingency spell that teleported him away and created a temporary double for him. It might have brought, his one of his henchmen in unbeknownst, looking like him to get slaughtered.
Oh yeah. Well, the plan is, if they do end up winning the fight, so to speak, it'll be one of those, like, you have not so campy, but a little bit. It's like a "you have defeated me for now," and then like smoke bomb disappear kind of thing.
Oh yeah, yeah. As
Get
long
the
as
heck
they,
out of there.
if they're earning that victory, give them the sense of victory
Well, if they
without
win, they get
sacrificing the
something big.
story.
So
Yeah.
if they win that fight, they're gonna get a seeing stone, like a Lord of the Rings
Palantir.
Palantir. Is that what those
Yeah.
were?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's gonna be directly connected to the enemy. And over time, they'll be able to learn it and use it, and be able to like spy on the enemy's plans and stuff to
Sick.
help make their own plans. But that's a big get. So if
Totally.
they so they got to work for it.
Totally. Totally. Now that sounds super fun, man. What kind of setting are
Yep.
you using? More like a standard fantasy Tolkien esque, or you may have
Yeah,
already
it's
mentioned
it's
this. Go ahead.
definitely very fantasy token-esque. It's heavily rooted in the Feywilds.
Oh, nice.
So what it is the 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 big bad that's portrayed right now is Lord Brannon, and
Okay.
he like secret backstory that they don't know. He actually used to work for the Queen of Shadows. She tried
Gnarly.
invading and taking over this land, and he was working for her, saw the land, and basically was like, nah. And he was the only person who could and stopped her, and he's been holding her back. So if they defeat him, they're gonna release the Queen of Shadows.
Oh.
But he was still, he's still evil. Like he's still kind of a bad person, and he was
Yeah.
really bitter about it. So he's just not a good leader. Like people are poor. He's taxing people. He's prohibiting magic. Like you're not allowed to use magic, and like he's just sucking the people dry and
Yeah.
holding them stagnant. And he's Fey, and he's an archfey, so he's been in power for 1,000 years. So he's deep rooted.
Whoa.
Um,
Yeah. Entrenched
and
bureaucracy like a mofo.
absolutely. And I mean, there's been zero advancement. Like they should easily, like if this was a true developing world, they should have discovered electricity by now.
Oh,
You know,
gotcha. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's just
and
standing in
they're
the way of
just
progress because it'll threaten him, basically.
absolutely, it'll
Yeah, yeah.
change, and it'll make things harder potentially for him to hold the Queen of Shadows back, which he knows. Like at the core of himself, he knows, and he's kind of. Uh I'm playing him kind of like a what's the Oathbreaker Paladin.
Oh, nice.
So he could potentially have a redemption arc here,
Oh, that's the best, man.
but you know, but for right now, he's holding to that core of I'm gonna save this world, but I'm not gonna be happy about it.
Right.
Um,
I'm gonna save it for me, ultimately.
yeah, exactly, yeah. Um, so that's definitely
Evocative.
possible. So yeah, I'm definitely excited to see how all of this goes, and like some of the cities are really loyal to him, some of them aren't. The cities are the
Ooh.
main focus. Now, one of the big
Okay.
differences between like our Pathfinder campaign and this one
Mm-hmm.
is that there's the traveling is a lot faster. Like
Sure.
it's an established world, so they're not exploring. So there's
Mm-hmm.
roads and infrastructure, and they're able to get to and from. But
Totally.
they've already experienced like a Feywild where they had to fight off a banshee. Um,
Mm.
and stuff like that. But
Mm.
yeah, so but I'm definitely like I think where I struggle is definitely in like the prep and like I don't know. I'm they have not done a and all of the memes and everything have warned me about this. They have not done a single thing that I've actually predicted them to do, and
Right.
I've had to like just like not alter but shift the story
Sure.
slightly.
Yeah, of course. Of course. It's their
Yeah,
story, ultimately, you know?
yeah,
They're
absolutely.
just
And I'm trying to
taking what
let
you
them
got and
play it
making a
out. So,
Yeah. So one of my tricks for that I try to do is if I really want them to do something, and I've got a cool scene and cool rewards and this cool scenario thought up, then I will find ways to incentivize it. I'll look through their backstories and their characters. I'll add little details to the quest to add those personal hooks. Um, I'll foreshadow interesting things about it, and stuff like that. Like, because I don't ever want to force a player into a choice. I want everyone to agree to do it at the table.
Yeah.
And sometimes everyone's got a different idea in their head, and you can, you know, it's a little tricksy, but it's not. I still think it's in good faith because but the practice is like they really want to do this. You really want them to do X. Give them a small added reason not to do the thing they want to do, or remind them of some detail in the world that already adds a difficulty to it they had forgotten about, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll get them to sort of rethink on their own, because you're not lying. You're reminding them of something in the game that is a consequence. And then at the same time, tell them something new they didn't know about the other quest that makes it seem like more accessible or simpler or more fun or whatever, or more in line with their story or characters.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of different ways you can do that, and you're already showing a ton of creativity, bro. So I'm sure that advice will help you out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely excited. Like, I know, what is it? One of my players. So he's a friend of mine, and he's a business guy through and through. He got an accounting degree from App State, and like he's a supply chain manager. And it's so funny. His character, like what he talks about every time that we have a session, is like, I want my character to start a business and make money in this world. And like I didn't really see that coming, so I've had to like I'm definitely doing math to like calculate value of things.
Oh yeah.
So he's like,
What's the seasonal value of wheat? Ah.
yeah, I'm like, okay, I mean, we're gonna make this happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you want this to happen, it's gonna happen, man. You're gonna start a business. And like I'm like, okay, well, that might be good because then it could give them a stream of revenue and they could buy magic items and maybe pay people off. And as they accrue more factions and followers to this rebellion, like maybe they'll figure out, they'll use that business for good or evil. I don't know. So,
Well, the internet, there's a lot of DMs have had similar issues. There's a lot of cool resources online for random NPCs for a town, or sections of town that are fully populated with NPCs that you could use for ideas. Also, there's people that have done exhaustive charts on the seasonal value of grain in a regionally arid land, and that you could pull up, you could Google and find those things and just be like, all right, I'll read that, cool, and just start sending it to your player. And if he's that interested in it, he will help you build that aspect of your game at the table.
yeah.
Because he's got all the knowledge. He knows about it.
Yeah.
And he wants to make a fantasy world version of the same system to play in.
I think so. One of the ideas he had was, so when they were in the Feywild, I had them, when they finally exited, I had them roll a d6 to figure out if time there passed normally. Was it slower? Was it faster?
Oh,
And
yeah.
time was way faster in there. So like, which was great. I'm like, oh, thank you, dice gods, because time was faster in the Feywild. So like, it allowed me to do things out, in my head, like story wise happening outside of where they were, and give a really good reason as to why these things occurred. And he was like, oh, well, he was even talking about crops. He's like, we'll plant crops in there and then they'll grow faster and we can just get them and bring them out and da da da. And I'm like,
Oh, he's in deep already. Love it.
but I was like, okay, give me like an Arcana or history check. And I actually really like the way, because when you listen to podcasts, a lot of DMs always ask for a specific skill check.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I like about your campaigns is that you're like, you know what, give me this would work, or this would work. And it'll give different information depending on which skill check it is.
That's right. It's really fun.
But I'll like, he aced his Arcana roll, just absolutely aced it. And I was like, okay, well, your character would know that, Feywild time is not stable. So, you could do this, but it's going to be a risk because they might grow way slower. So, so yeah. Um, and he was he was so sad. It's just like, he was like, no, my whole business plan. I'm like, dude, we're 3 sessions in. You'll find something, okay?
You're
You're
just starting
gonna
out in a
figure
new,
it out.
yeah, you're just starting out in a new field, bro. Relax, it takes time.
Yep. So one of the things I've been trying to edge this particular player into is he chose a warlock because he liked that the spell slots were generated on a short rest.
Mm-hmm.
And he had played a D&D campaign. I don't know if it was 3rd edition or 4th edition, but essentially like you know, instead of spell slots, he used like magic points essentially, so he could cast whatever he wanted as long as he was within certain points.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, we're gonna kind of use more of the 5e rule set and this and that, and he's fine with it, and he's been leaning into it really well. But he's being a warlock. He has a patron, and he chose the genie patron, and his his genie patron is the genie from Aladdin. It's absolutely the Robin Williams genie. And I have been dying to do my best Robin Williams genie impression. So I've just been trying to coax the patron out of him. I'm like, what is your patron doing? What is your relationship to that? Like, hey, man, talk to me about, like, you have a genie bottle. What are you going to do with the genie bottle? Like, you can take a rest in there, man. You can take a short rest in that genie bottle. So, definitely been trying to get him to think about that. Any tips on getting a player to interact more with their patron, like coaxing that out of them?
Man, that's a tough one. Some players seem like they're just looking at the mechanics, and that's mainly what they're interested in. So that's the tough one, because a player's just not interested. I mean, you'll figure that out in a few more sessions, if he's just not interested in that. But yeah, I've definitely, there's definitely times where I've had to coax players out into role playing, or even just looking at their spells and getting a better understanding of how they work. To coax interest is kind of, that's a good tool to have in the tool set as a DM.
Yeah.
Oh, I did not save that. Ah, damn. Oh well.
Oh no.
That's okay. Something glitched up.
That's the worst.
Yeah, not too bad though. I put on a couple of wells and finished off some walls. Nothing I can't fix later. But let me think here for a second. Try to get them to think about their patron. Now, he hasn't talked about it at all. What did he say
Not really.
When he picked a warlock?
Well,
What did he say?
I don't think he fully understands what the patron is. And so an
Okay.
idea that I had was that if he continues to ignore his patron, there's going to be consequences.
Oh, sure.
And his patron's not going to appreciate not getting validation or attention,
yeah.
And I'm like, so things might start happening to him.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
So, it's like, I rolled a nat 20 on my Eldritch Blast. That's great. It didn't work. It fizzled in your hand. And just kind of start, maybe he's having weird dreams or getting impressions. And honestly, if it goes on long enough, maybe I do a scene where, the genie breaks out and it's just that classic Aladdin, like, 1,000 years could put such a crink in your neck. And then, like, just here comes Robin Williams genie,
Yeah, but with a little more suspense in there, so he doesn't know what the hell his angry patron's gonna do.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, a little sense of foreboding in there, at least for a few minutes. Let the players sweat it out. That's all we really need the players to do: sweat it out a little bit.
Yep. And one of the decisions he made was that he wants the pact of the chain, right? Where you get the familiar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he was like, I want my familiar to be a monkey, and I'm like, I think I know where this is going. Um, do you want the monkey to wear a little red fedora hat? And he's like, absolutely. I'm like, okay, so you want a boot? So you're just making Aladdin then? Is that what you're doing? Or he's just like, yeah, kind of. I'm like, okay, you know what? We're just gonna lean into this hard. So now he is a warlock with a genie that has a monkey as his companion.
I love it.
Yep.
That's great.
Yeah. So I've been really digging it. And then I have come into the folly of, and I think you've seen it with Aidman a little bit too, where I think I have, for the most part, terrible dice luck, which is fine because I can lean into that. I can lean into bad rolls.
Yeah.
But as a GM, having bad rolls means that your NPCs have bad rolls and your villains have bad rolls. So I'm
Different
like,
story.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
like, uh-oh. And we're playing a campaign such as where like during battle, I'm posting the rolls on Roll20 for the fights
Right.
so they can see them. So, I might start as now. Some of them are like some of the RP stuff has been behind the scenes rolling, and I think if they fight like the Duke, that is going to change personality and drop his voice. He'll probably roll behind the scenes.
That's fair.
So, but yeah, for like the Banshee, she got some pretty terrible rolls, and they were able to take her out, which is fine. I mean, that was the point, but.
Totally. But you also want it to, you don't want it to be anticlimactic for the party. And I mean, you've
Yeah,
experienced where in the part when in the where you all took out a boss that you all were pretty worried about a lot easier than you expected. And for the most part, it seemed like anyway the party was like, nope, that's the die. We prepared for it. We sweated on it. It just didn't take a whole lot of resources, you know. Or even then, sometimes it'll look easy to me as the GM, and the party will be like, dude, I've used 3/4 of my spells. So and so's half hit points. Aidman had to heal like 7 times. You know, like that was a good fight. You know, when we got lucky and it didn't, and that's how it goes sometimes. And so I
yep,
think one thing that happens to me is I have my hopes up about how the fight's going to go as the GM.
yeah,
And I think that's where Stephen King's "sometimes you got to kill your darlings" comes in. You know, sometimes you do have to let that fight go. If it's not going to ruin, if it is ruining the campaign, that's a different story. But if it's, we have to recognize where we're really excited about a thing. We just want it to play out as a thing in a certain way, but it might not be the best thing for the fun of the whole table, right? But our fun
right,
does matter too, and one of the tools we have as the GM is the ability to roll behind the table, to fudge die rolls, i.e., cheating, as long as it serves the good time of everybody. There's some GMs that are totally staunchly against that and think that's not playing D&D, and there's others that are like, well, "What are you talking about? Every DM fudges dice, you know."
well,
But
it's in the DMG, so it says you can.
yeah,
That's how I look at it.
I
I'm
mean,
like,
yeah, I feel like the agreement is we are trusting the GM to know the rules and use the rules to help us all have a good time and tell a good story. And using
mhm,
the rules sometimes means not using the rules. So whether you're home brewing or making a rule of cool decision or whatever it is, So that's a
yep,
tricky one that I think you just have to feel at your table. And and how long has it been going on? If your die rolls suck for 3 sessions, the table's going to feel that, and so you might start fudging die. You might start saying, "All right, gang, you know, this is not fun. It's less fun for me, and the GM's fun is important, right? Because if I'm not having fun, y'all aren't gonna have fun. And if you all are having fun when someone at the table, because someone else at the table is not having fun, you guys are jerks.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So,
So like our fun is definitely part of it. And I think we're sometimes neutral arbiter of the rules, sometimes creative storyteller, and often in between, right? So like feel it out, and if it continues or you feel like you could even take a poll with your players and be like, hey, I've had some bad dire luck. How has that impacted y'all's enjoyment of the game? Have the fights been too easy? Have you been disappointed, or have things been lackluster or anticlimactic? Never be afraid to talk to your players, but also, sometimes you want to keep some things under your hat, and especially if they're new, you don't necessarily want to burden them with questions. But hardly anybody comes to the D&D table who's not ready for some extra complexity, in my opinion.
Yeah. And they've been awesome players. So, and I think it helps because we were all really tight in college. 3 of us were roommates. The other one was, always over, and we have a really tight relationship. So that's very good.
That is good. Heck yeah. That's some of the best fun. Are y'all playing in person or virtual?
It's over. It's virtual because
That's cool. Yeah.
it's me and my friend are here in Charlotte, and 2 people are in Raleigh. So we just play virtual. Plus, my friend here in Charlotte has had just had a baby, and so it's like it would just be a whole to do to get us all together.
Oh God, yeah.
Plus, no one owns any actual. Like, I mean, I understand you only need really like a piece of graph paper to play the game, and but it's been, honestly, I like that. I started playing D&D online, so I'm comfortable with it and familiar with it.
It's so accessible, man. It's so easy.
I know, and I mean the fact that Roll20 does your math for you is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just stupid cool.
Dude, I mean, I've been playing since the 80s, often a lot of theater of the mind, sometimes maybe a piece of notebook paper with a hastily scrawled geometries out on it to show the maps, and stuff like that. So the past couple of years, getting into virtual, and oh my goodness, I get to have maps, cool evocative maps to show my players. Oh man, this is one of the best eras to be a DM or a player. I think especially if you have a good combination of like new and old school players around you, because old school play is a different thing, and there's a lot of cool things about it, but there's some things that are not as fun, depending on what you want and stuff like that. And then new school play is super heroic and really fun, but it can be, for some players, 5e can be a little bit like, this isn't very challenging. I tried to die last session and I couldn't, so like but you can also, 5e is pretty hackable too, and even just within the DMG there's a lot of suggestions of alternate rules. For instance, like in our game, we placed with some of the more hardcore stuff,
Yeah, I mean, lingering wounds and things of that nature can be devastating.
Yeah. But really fun.
Oh yeah.
They tell a story,
I agree.
I think.
What is it? So another issue I was having was plot holes.
Like
so
what?
like I have the best example I can come up with was last session. They had just gotten back from the Feywild. Someone that they met and kind of endeared to in the first session. He was imprisoned by the Duke of the city that they're in.
Okay.
The one that's going to switch personalities.
Copy.
And this person had like a lieutenant, and she managed to escape. And I had planned for that. I had planned for that person to escape so that they could tell the party, hey, so-and-so is in prison. And the party went, well, why didn't you go to prison? Mm-hmm. And I was essentially like, oh, well, this and that happened and da-da-da-da-da. And they went, well, why should we believe you?
Uh-huh.
And I went,
Smart party.
I don't actually know why. I don't know why you should believe her. There's no proof of this.
Totally.
How did I not think of not having proof of this?
Yeah. That's okay.
So I did. I turned it into like they were discussing, and they probably talked it over for like 10 to 15 minutes. Like, I think we should trust her. No, fuck her. She's not gonna da-da-da.
Yeah.
We curse like sailors in this.
Oh yeah, no, so, I'm fine with it. I don't think any of my viewers would care.
And she's just like, eventually she was like walked over to the party and like, she's like, I can hear you. Look, I don't give a shit if you believe me. Tomorrow I'm going to save him. You can either come with me or you can go do your own thing. Mm-hmm. And I was prepared for them to go either way.
Totally.
I was like, they can go with her. They ended up choosing to go with her. But I was thinking like that was a massive plot hole. I knew how she escaped, but I didn't know why they should believe her because they had just met her. So
Sure.
I don't know. I figure stuff like that will come in time, but is there any advice or anything that you do to try and patch up, like search for plot holes of that nature?
Well, first of all, I'd say you did great. That's a classic GM situation. Newer or older, we all have. The more complicated your plot is, the more chances you're going to have to leave something out. Second of all, I would say that's a very organic social situation that might arise in one of those things. She may not have thought of why wouldn't these people believe me? I'm me, you know. It might not have been anything. She may have been too harried to even think about it. Um, and I think sometimes your players will react to something and be like, "Well, we shouldn't believe her," and it's okay to change what you had in the background. Sometimes I think doing it too much, your players will figure it out. But I think every now and then, if they suspect and they just get their teeth into it and they won't let go, and they're like, "No, we can't trust her. She's a traitor." Well, then you should make her a traitor. Keep playing her just the way you are. Try to get work her way into their, keep working on, keep playing her the same, and hopefully in those cases, eventually they'll take her into their circle of trust, and she can betray him. So I think there's a few different ways to play that. I think you did great, and yeah, I think you're right. The more we do this, the easier it is to keep track of the details we know we will forget, that we're likely to forget, and plan for some of those things. But we're often always going to leave out something, and that's your clever players. You've good, are going to poke at the thing you don't want them to. They're going to try and find the alternate way through, the easier way through, and sometimes that's figuring out something the GM didn't think of. And if it's one of those situations, the players can be rewarded for it alternately. But
Now, did you so oh, did you save your map, by the way?
thank you, thank
I know you just
you.
finished putting up those walls, so I'm like,
Yeah,
the other stuff's easy.
yeah. Just the clicking, click my way to CT.
So yeah, I'm definitely trying. I'm going back over story and then like stuff like that. And I'm at the point where I have the world essentially fleshed out the way I want it. So like each session prep is really just ensuring that I have the proper maps. And I always try and like I said, I always try and predict what they're gonna do, and I give myself like 3 to 5 maps of where they might go. You know, um,
Yes, yeah, totally.
and I think about that kind of stuff. I'm like, and I've already run into the situation where they wanted to go somewhere I hadn't prepped for, and I mean we just did theater of the mind, and I was just a little bit more descriptive, and they definitely, like I do think like it kind of gave me a sense of view that I think the maps are amazing and it's so cool to look at and be able to
Mm-hmm.
interact with the world and it immerses you,
But
but that immersion can like bog the game down. It's almost like they're so focused on this map that
yeah,
it's like because the theater of the mind thing flew by. I mean, it
super.
was super fast.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I because like little things in a map, I put a glowing crystal in a map. It was just an innocuous glowing crystal.
Uh huh.
This crystal was 15 minutes worth of RP of them trying to figure out what it did. And
Absolutely.
I eventually just came up with the idea of it's a memory crystal of the Fae. They store memories in crystals, and I came up with a whole scene that this crystal displayed.
And see,
And
that's
it
cool though.
well, it actually worked out really well because then after that I immediately made a Fae archive map, and it was filled with crystals of different colors and sizes,
Nice.
and some had important. And I was like, oh my god, this is how I get the exposition out. And so
Mm-hmm.
I
Absolutely. Yeah.
these 4 big crystals are like these are the 4 pillars of my story. So this happened, then this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and they had to piece together the order of the memories and figure out what order things occurred in.
Dude.
And they
Dude,
they
I'm so
brought it hook,
excited
line,
for
and
you.
singer. I literally sat there and described to them the Queen of Shadows without saying names. I described to them the Queen of Shadows attempting to take over the world and getting blocked and imprisoned by Lord Brannon. And I was like, and and like you see
Were
this
they just
dark
rapped the whole
figure
time?
say, oh yeah, they loved it.
Dude, sorry to
And
interrupt.
no, no. But at the end of it they go they go, "Oh my gosh, that was Lord Brannon. He is evil." And I went, "Oh, yes, yes, they don't know. I was describing the Queen of Shadows, and they think it's the guy that's imprisoning her. This is awesome. This has worked out perfectly." It was just a beautiful moment.
Dude,
So
Brian, I'm
I'm
so happy
honestly
for you, man.
I'm getting a little worried that I'm throwing too much misdirection in, but so far, so good. So
Well, with the Fae, a lot of misdirection is great. When you're starting out, especially you're making the campaigns to some degree as you go, that misdirection serves a lot of different purposes. It allows you, it affords you a ton of wiggle room as a GM. And that's something that is really important to us. Wiggle room can be really important when especially
mhm.
when we're plotting it as we go. And we're sort of enjoying the process of creating and writing the story as the players are enjoying playing it, and so leaving ourselves wiggle room really matters. Plus, with Fae, they have their protocols and their sort of rules and manners and everything, but they don't all necessarily say exactly what they mean the way a normal mortal would. So that misdirection also works for them, especially with some of the Unseelie and Shadowfell kind of Fae who lying isn't even necessarily a rude or wrong thing to them. It's just something that you do,
Yep.
depending on how you play Fae again. But
Yeah. Well, no, it's definitely they they have no problem lying. When they left the Fey archive, one of the Queen of Shadows, one of her agents has managed to penetrate the world,
mm-hmm.
and it was an Eladrin Fey, one of the like the what is it? It's like it's ancient elf looking creature,
Yeah, yeah.
and he appears to them golden, but his true nature is like a dark shadow. But he
Oh, that's
basically
awesome.
told them like, "I will help you take out Lord Brandon because that's in his best interest. His queen becomes free, so he's going to help them. But he's actually, that actually would only
Air
serve
quotes,
him.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Help you. Customer service. Sorry.
Yeah, with a smile.
Yeah.
So, um, oh
Dude,
gosh,
Brian, I have to say, I'm so thrilled hearing this story. I'm so, I'm so happy that it's taken off. You feel really good about it. All this stuff is picking up, and just hearing your stories, I hope this doesn't sound like weird, but I'm super freaking proud of you, bro. Like, this is awesome.
oh thanks, man. I took a lot of what we were talking about. Great DMs can steal basically
Oh yeah,
from other forms of media,
yeah,
and
man.
I took a huge portion of this from the Mistborn series that Brandon Sanderson wrote.
Okay.
And it's like it's very similar. Like there was a Lord Ruler, and he was holding back a greater evil. But they thought he was the bad guy, and he was a bad person.
Yeah,
And they
but he
took him out, and
wasn't
it's
the
like,
bad person.
right, exactly. But so I've given my cities all a bunch of silly names, and one of them is named Coolsville. Um, and the plan for Coolsville is to have a bumbling mayor who has a haunted mansion type problem, and for them to have a Scooby Doo esque adventure. So I have
Awesome.
been I have been looking for like haunted mansion, because everything I've been doing has been from my mind, and I'm like, you know
Yeah.
what? It would probably be nice to have 2 or 3 sessions where I was using a what do you call that? The things that you can. There's free ones, but you can buy them. It's like it's a Dungeons and Dragons modular model or something.
The dungeon terrain?
Not necessarily maps, but like it's a story, and it tells you how it should
Oh,
go and
just a
how the world
module.
should be.
Yeah,
The
module.
module.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. So I'm definitely I'm looking for like a good haunted mansion module,
Okay, I have to pause
but
everybody
also
so I can say to my audience how much it warms my heart to hear a GM starting out that can't even remember the fucking word for a module. Sorry, please
I
go
was
ahead.
like
That's amazing.
I couldn't remember it. And you
Because
know
they
what's
don't
funny is
matter.
I looked at a ton of them and I was like I'm not paying for this. I can make this up. Um, but
Classic.
yeah, I've been looking for like cheap or free modules of like haunted mansions or horror adventures and like I mean it's a Scooby Doo adventure. The end of the adventure is they unmask the ghost and it's Old Man Jenkins. Like that's absolutely what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
But I just got to figure out the mechanics to get there.
Okay, yeah. So mysteries are fun, man. And there's a bunch of different ways to do them. A lot of stuff has been written on it. Oh my goodness, why is it doing that? Boo. For some reason it didn't switch to the right stone color. Oh bother. But
Okay,
so
Winnie the Pooh.
yeah. So but yeah, like this there's some pretty good videos on it from some of our favorite channels as far as mysteries. I'm doing I have done and am doing a spy sort of thief campaign in which there's like a lot of intrigue and kind of mysteries. But
Okay.
I've only ever done one focused mystery, and that was actually in Landfall. It was Fireheart's killer during the Aran Shin, where the party's trying to figure out who murdered this tribal
Oh,
chieftain, and they figure out that it's this other tribe, and they've acted dishonorably using poison, and it's this whole big kind of kerfluffle. And I wasn't sure how I was going to run it going into it. It's not something I had researched. Again, it was just my philosophy, and other GMs have definitely said this is like I'll try to make the problem, and it's up to the party to figure out how to solve it.
yeah.
And so I was like, okay, he's dead. These people aren't going to speak. They're Lear. It's a thing of dishonor, so they won't even speak on it. They will never say our chieftain was poisoned. So they had to kind of figure out what happened, and that took several insight checks, persuasion checks, going around talking to different people, and I would just dole out bit by bit the information. And then as it sort of went, I realized, okay, so the situation they're in, the real problem is even if because they can cast divination, they can do whatever to find the killer. Figuring it out, not the hard part. Resolving the situation was the hard part because it was a foreign people to them. It was a foreign system of honor and law. They're learning it, but they were just barely starting to learn it then at that point. That's why they went into the Aran Shin with them. And so I figured out okay by game rules I had already set, like the parameters of the Lear culture and stuff. It's like okay, so they're not going to tell them that there was poison. They're not going to tell them that they're dishonored. They're not going to ask them to figure it out for them. All of those things are totally against the grain of Lear culture. So all they could do was give the party looks and leave information out and let a conversation trail off, change the subject in weird ways. And so I gave them insight checks. As they were shooting in the dark completely at first, and they got some insight, and they start figuring out, okay, well, we can go talk to this person. This person saw something, and they narrow it down to 3 suspects. But the real crux is they can't. The tribe in question who it happened to can't resolve it because that would be admitting that it happened. So the party has to resolve it alone. Now, they, they sort of narrowed it down, and they also figured out because they're still learning the culture at that point. So using some other like checks, figuring out cultural stuff like persuasion and insight and stuff like that, getting advantage if they've been studying it or if they had other sort of related proficiencies and things. They narrowed it down, and they figured out that more than likely, even though the Lear had done this really dishonorable thing, still the core and the long-standing traditions of theirs were pretty upstanding. And so they realized if they found the killer and called them out in front of everybody, other tribe from theirs, not their tribe, like in public at the Aranshian, that the person would be unable to escape the sort of ancient, sort of almost bone-deep bonds of honor and would admit it. And that was the last thing that they had to figure out on how to resolve it. But to do that, I think they ended up having to fight somebody. They had, off away from the city. I think they ended up having to fight somebody or something like it. They had to risk themselves somehow to get that final piece of information.
Yeah.
So as far as mysteries, like they're tough to write. I think traditionally, as far as books, and stories and stuff. But if you just have the mystery and you're going with the feel of it, and you think logically about the situation and the parameters you've set, what the party would know, how they would find it out, and you just make sure that you might have to add some extra challenge to make the resolution itself difficult, right? Because in a mystery, often the resolution part, that's the main part of the book, but then there's still some added difficulty once they figure it out. They're like, oh, we figured it out, but it doesn't matter now because X, kind of thing. And high stakes movies and stuff like that, those things will be bigger and bigger deals, right? Nuclear bombs and stuff. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope that helps me rambling about my experiences.
No, that helps. That helps tremendously.
Cool.
So, I'm definitely, you know, I'm definitely interested in doing that and like, coming up with clues that they could find, and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, I think I may just have to go back and watch some Scooby Doo
Totally.
episodes and like
Totally.
get that inspiration.
Watch Clue. It's hilarious,
Oh yeah.
and there's good details. Because often the answer as a GM or writer is thinking through what you've already put down on the page. And so often if we think through stuff, we'll figure out like how they get killed. Okay, they got killed like this. This is how the killer did it. How smart were they? We might even roll for it to see what kind of details they left behind. They beef their check. They don't have advantage. Their assistants beef their checks. Then there's several clues laying around. If not, then it may be slightly harder. And I think that can be fun too because again, it'll force us to stay creative and keeps that mystery sort of thick and forces the players to use different tools and stuff. And that's really what we want for a mystery or any scenario is to use the players, get their attention and focus on it, and often to get them to spend some resources and stuff, right? 3.5 wise anyway. All right.
Yeah.
This is looking all right, I think.
Yeah.
Paint the background here.
Well, don't forget to save it.
Ah, look at you, man, Edmund.
What?
Brian,
I'm here to provide aid. What? There was when I was in like grade school. We were just learning computers and stuff. I was in Catholic school, so of course they would make a like religion joke about learning to save your work because back then computers didn't have autosave features.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that like the joke was to remind us to save. It was God challenged Jesus and the devil to already starting off super strong here to type like this essay or something to like prove a point. And so they're typing and working for hours and they're making this long, like 60-page paper on proving their point. And near the end of it, the power goes out. And then the power comes back on, and the devil has lost all his work. He has his entire paper is gone, and Jesus prints his and submits it. And the devil's like, "This is ridiculous. How did you print it? Like the power went out." And God looked at the devil and said, "Well, Jesus saves."
Damn it.
It's just like, you're the worst. Now, looking back on it as an adult, I'm like, that was dumb. And as a kid, I was like, well, that's really smart. I should probably save all my work. So, I mean, it worked. It reminded me to save all the time, but...
Yeah, totally.
Damn.
Oh, man. This reminds me of that. I don't know if it's like it's a meme now, but it was a t-shirt for a long time. It just says on the front, Jesus saves. And on the back it says, and takes half damage.
Now that's awesome. That's clever as hell.
But as a recovering Catholic, I would have to say that he probably has evasion, and if he saves, he probably doesn't take any damage at all.
Yeah, there you go. As
I
a
mean, let's
recovering
give him some
Catholic.
credit. I mean, come on.
What a good way to put it. Recovering Catholic.
I say recovering because the recovery is a long journey.
Oh
Oh
hell
man.
yeah. So, oh my gosh.
That was gonna take
Oh,
forever.
but,
Oh, that's baby poop brown, isn't it?
it looks good though. I mean, what's it supposed to be?
I mean, yeah,
Is it
about
just
that.
supposed to be
Some
a
nasty brown.
background or
Yeah, I just want that to be like the surrounding stone or whatever. It's not necessary.
okay?
Um, I'd really just need to get rid of the white, and that would be fine. The page from in there. But
Yeah.
I'll find a better color because that's not so. It's not so pleasant. It just looks kind of. I'm not trying for sickly, so. All right, that's fine. All right, I'm gonna have to use some of these things. I think this will be the first time, if I do it, that I've ever actually finished a map while streaming.
Oh, cool.
I've always started and just been like, man, this is gonna take forever. You guys get the idea. Bye.
I'll finish it up later.
Yeah. Oh
Can you
man.
not just drop it to the background and just literally paint up and down over the whole map?
I can drop it to the background, but if I do that, um, I'll I'll paint over it, so it won't necessarily make it any easier.
You'll paint over the dungeon floor.
Yeah, because it'll be on the background,
Okay,
and if I paint on the foreground, it won't show up unless I add a
gotcha.
layer to the mask.
So
And I
what
just
I
don't mess with
did
it
when
most
I
of the
was
time.
building my city was I knew what I wanted the surrounding background to be, like it
Hmm.
was a grassy field, and I just made that the backdrop, built everything on top of it, and then painted interior floors.
Totally, yeah, yeah. It's often what I do. I just kind of because I started with the
The dungeon floor.
yeah, I started with the hand drawn map reference.
Hmm.
So, and that's kind of what I was trying to share. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely a better way to do it. But because this is I mean, it's a little tedious,
Hmm.
a little bit.
Absolutely.
But you can hold shift actually when you're doing this to get the dimensions exactly where you want them, and that's pretty handy.
Oh, okay.
Because
I didn't know
otherwise,
that.
yeah, otherwise it's just wherever the heck it wants to go. Or wherever it wants to snap to by default, which you can probably change that in the settings, but
Yeah,
this
I
foe is
mean,
beyond me.
building the like sizing the maps in Roll20 and getting the dynamic lighting the way I wanted it. You have to like build walls and all this stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
um, I was using the polygon feature, but it was definitely like it definitely had a mind of its own, and it got frustrating at times where it was like, no, no, that line was supposed to be straight. Why did you appear, 5 feet to the left? Like, don't be ridiculous.
Right. You know about control before you release it? Holding control?
That's I
Okay.
had I once I figured that out, it became a lot easier. But
Yeah, man. The first 6 months I was making maps. Whew, let's say I didn't make a lot of maps. I ended up buying a packet from Seafoot Games actually, which here's a plug. Seafoot, just like it sounds, all one word. Seafoot Games. They have big packets of maps. A lot of them are sort of open-ended, so it's and have the same texture, so it's easy to open them in something like MS Paint and sort of turn them and
yeah.
rearrange them and plug them together. Maybe use a
Hmm.
little bit of color to blend them together. That's the first maps that I was making was doing that. So
Yeah.
and again, yeah, during the quarantine they gave a big old bundle for like
And I've
50
and I
bucks or
mean I've
something.
definitely like Google searching battle maps. I've definitely come across maps that we've used before.
Oh
The
yeah,
uh
totally.
the cave where we fought two rivers, or Dark River,
Yeah,
right?
that was
The
that
Dark
was
Bay.
that's Seafoot.
I came across that on Google Maps and was able to like copy it and po- paste it in. So, but I think it's been out for a while, so I'm sure somebody turned it into that image eventually, and was just like,
Yeah, battle maps definitely get passed around a bunch.
"Yep." So that's why I follow that Reddit battle maps page, because it'll like I'd say about 50% of them are posted as like JPEG, so you can just paste them into Roll20. and the creators are like, here, use this. I don't care. And then the other half are like, hey, if you subscribe to my Patreon page, you can use these maps, which has been tempting, but I haven't felt the need just yet.
Yeah.
So after dropping, serious coin on buying, in Roll20 buying the player handbook and the DMG and the monster manual and all this other stuff,
Oh yeah.
I'm
Oh
like, man,
yeah.
I'm like $250 deep into Roll20 now.
Oh man.
Like,
Yeah, heck yeah. I wish I had known. I would have just made some games for my compendium and made you the GM.
oh, it's all right. I wanted them anyways, so that
Yeah.
I could just have all that stuff in the compendium. Because I'm like, because I'll play with other, on the that Western March server that I'm a part of. Every once in a while, I'll play a pickup game, and it's fun. Um, you never know what you're gonna get as far as the DM.
Mm,
It could, but I mean, most of them are fun, and a lot of the guys in there just want to, hop in and play a quick game of D&D and hop out, and
totally.
um,
Yeah.
which I mean, I'm learning that a quick game of D&D is like 3 hours
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
for a one shot. Um, but uh, but yeah, I wanted that stuff because I wanted to be able to add stuff to my character. Because I think the first character I ever made was a Goliath Battlemaster fighter, and I made him on D&D Beyond, and I only had access to the player handbook stuff, like no Tashas, no Xanthars, nothing. Um, and I was like, man, they have such cool stuff in those books. Like
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
for a rogue, I mean, the player handbook doesn't have steady aim,
Mm-mm.
and steady aim is like awesome. It's just such a good feature,
Oh yeah. It's ridiculous. It's definitely
and
yeah. Yeah.
and it makes sense too. It's like, oh yeah, if you give up your movement, then yeah, you could probably like steady your shot and have a much better chance of hitting your target.
Agreed. Agreed. Man. Oh man. Train of thought just derailed. Never mind. I was gonna say something, but it's gone, baby, gone.
Nah, you're pretty engrossed in the and making sure you don't, ride over your hard work.
Yeah, and I'm just playing with, I guess I can use the circular tool in some of these spaces that might be good, but
The
yeah, this
tight
is
spaces.
yeah.
Yep. I mean, making maps is definitely tedious, but I mean, the ultimate payoff is like you get the map you absolutely wanted.
Totally. Totally.
It's like this is what you don't have to make exceptions or come up with reasons for why things are the way they are. Um, so
Yeah. And man, that's fun, but it also takes some of your creative juices that could just go toward the session,
yeah,
trying to
absolutely.
explain away your maps and stuff. So it definitely matters, especially after a while. If you got a really big game and there's a lot that you're creating and juggling at once.
Yep. Well, if I see this map, I'm going for that secret door. Don't think I'm avoiding these in our game. I know where they are.
I'd be disappointed if you didn't.
So
I
I'll
mean,
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what I'm really excited about was that little moment between me and Hydron where he was like talking about, he's tired of the aging thing, and then like me throwing sleep powder in his face from those plants. Like I only intended that to be funny, and then I started thinking about the pollen or like those plants, and I was just like, I could use that in so many situations.
oh yeah, that stuff's pretty useful.
So
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm gonna see what I can get away with it. So,
I,
but I mean,
I,
you know me as a player. I'm like, can I do this? No, you probably couldn't. It's okay.
well, you know me as the
I
GM. I'm
you're probably gonna say yes anyway
often,
with a good check.
yeah, yeah, yes with a good check, or if you convince me, um, or at least like a no but, and come up with
Yeah.
something similar that doesn't break the scenario.
Yep. Um. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna explore that and try and come up with some good uses for it. So, because it was, I mean, that was a great moment. What an awesome moment.
That was really fun. I'm really happy with how that campaign is coming along. I'm so happy you were able to come back to the table.
Oh yeah, me too. Well, I mean,
Like it was
gosh.
meant to be. Because we just
Mhm.
had a series of people who would come in for a little while, help kind of keep the game afloat, add some more dynamics for, Hydron, or for Henry and Jeff and Joe. And then they'd drift back out again. Someone else would drift in for a little while. And that's how the campaign has been until Aidman returns triumphantly.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely happy to be in the game. So it's been my favorite for a long time. So I enjoy playing, and I enjoy playing the character Aidman.
He's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well,
Oh,
this
too.
looks like I'm almost done here. Looks pretty solid.
Yeah,
I'm gonna save it again.
yeah. I don't see any bald spots in the background.
I'll probably go back over it and do a few new touches. Check over my actual notes, and there are some cracked fountains and a
Yep.
few other details in there. So I'm gonna probably work on this again the next time I stream, maybe later on this week or next week. But yeah, once it finishes saving, I wanted to just show you or tell you about some of just my techniques or whatever, and they may be things you already do or whatever. But just in terms of like placing and layering things to give the sense of depth that you're looking for, making sure the shadows are set the way that you want. Like see how so the way I've intended it is the gray path you can see kind of connects directly,
Uh-huh.
and the blue path kind of goes underneath this one to here. Um, and so I tried to indicate with shadows, if you can see these rocks clearly go under. There's a lot of shadows. Um,
Yeah,
and I
I
tried
can.
to
It looks very much like it goes underneath that path.
awesome, and I did that by making sure they're all on the same layer pretty much. I just did them in order. I just did the blue and then did the black, and every time I would kind of mess it up by shoring up my lines, I'd go back over it and do it again in that order, just to make sure the shadows were and the stones were laying right.
Yeah.
And I tried to make it look like I kind of messed up in this area, but I tried to make it look like on here these stones like meet the other stones instead of going up or over them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just by making sure you're placing the stones um, of the different colors next to each other. So I'll probably go back and make sure that this transition looks like these stones are next to these by doing the same things. Like these up here look that way. It looks like they kind of meet. None looks like they're underneath too much. Um, this looks like it
And
meets
those
pretty
meet.
well. Yeah. So I'll go back and
Yeah.
shore that up. And then just as far as the actual entrance, they'll be hidden by rubble, available to a investigation check, that kind of thing. Yeah, put some wells, some sort of maybe an undead wizard's sort of home there. These might be the crypts over here where he keeps some of his experiments. Who knows? Maybe he keeps them all locked in this section. So if the players find the secret door, they move into a tunnel of zombies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that sounds nice. Anyway, yeah, heck yeah, that is saved. And I think I'm gonna have to jump off and start preparing some dinner and preparing for my next session, which is actually the rogue and thief campaign I was talking about earlier.
Nice. Well, have fun. Yeah, I'm headed off as well, so can get some sleep.
Dude, thanks so much for joining me. This has been great.
Yeah. Good chatting.
Definitely. I'll see you. I'll talk to you soon. See you in Discord.
See you in Discord. Later.
All right, bud. And
Bye.
everybody, thanks for watching. Um, yeah, this has been really fun. I I don't know. I don't know if any of you all use Discord. If you all were just here to hang out and watch and listen to two DMs nerd out about stuff, but heck yeah, I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much, and hit me up if you have any questions about this kind of stuff. You can find me on Discord. Search up DM Feanor. I think I'm listed up there. Anyway, 0649 DM Feanor 0649. Talk to y'all soon. Take care of yourselves. And happy solstice, everyone. Happy solstice. Burn a candle or otherwise keep the flame tonight. Keep your mind on it. The longest night of the year. Keep contact with that light. Good night, everyone. I love you.